You know exactly what this is, a solar eclipse. You learned what causes it. The moon passes between the earth and the sun. The shadow falls, the sky goes dark for a few minutes, and then the sun returns. You have a word for it. You have a diagram for it. You are not afraid of it in the way that matters. Now go back 40,000 years. Same sky, same ground, same shadow, moving across the earth toward you at 1,700 miles per hour. But there's no word for it. There is no explanation for it. There is no one alive who has ever seen it and survived to tell you what it was. You are standing in open grassland, somewhere in what is now East Africa, and it is mid-morning. And the light is beginning to do something that has no name. Not inconvenient, not strange, wrong. The light is wrong in a way your body registers before your mind does. Here's what this video is actually about. The explanation your ancestors invented for what they were watching was not primitive superstition. It was the most logical hypothesis the available evidence could support. And the terror they felt in those minutes, the specific physiological terror, is still running in your body right now, as a program that has never been updated, because nothing in the last 40,000 years has ever given your nervous system a reason to revise it. Your amygdala does not wait for an explanation. There is a direct neural pathway from the light-sensitive cells in your retina straight to your brain's threat center, a pathway that bypasses conscious thought entirely. When light disappears, the threat signal fires before you have formed a single word about what is happening. Adrenaline reaches your bloodstream within seconds. Your heart rate spikes. Your pupils dilate. Your digestion halts. Blood redirects from your organs to your major muscle groups, because your body has already decided you may need to run, and it did not ask your opinion first. Now add this. During a total solar eclipse, the temperature drops 5 to 10 degrees in minutes. The wind shifts direction. Stars appear in the daytime sky, and every bird within earshot goes silent, because they too believe it is suddenly night. Your ancestors lived in bands of 20 to 50 people. They had no writing, no accumulated astronomical record, no elder who had survived this before. Total solar eclipses are rare. A given location on Earth experiences totality roughly once every 375 years, which means that for most bands of prehistoric humans, no living person in the group had ever seen one. No parent had described it. No story contained it. The group's entire accumulated knowledge, everything passed down from every ancestor, offered nothing. They were watching something that existed outside every category they had ever built. The eclipse does not arrive as a sudden blackout. It builds over an hour. The sun is consumed from one edge. A small dark bite appears at the upper rim, barely noticeable at first, easily mistaken for a cloud. But the bite does not move the way clouds move. It stays. It grows. Over the next hour, the sun becomes a crescent, then a sliver, then a hair of light, and then nothing. And in the moment of totality, the world does something it has never done before in any living memory. It becomes night in the middle of the day. The numbers tell one story. The lived reality tells another. Picture East Africa, 40,000 years ago. A group of 30 people is crossing open ground in the late morning. The grass is dry, the air is warm. There is nothing wrong with the world. And then, slowly, the quality of the light begins to change. Not darker exactly, but flatter. The shadows sharpening in a way that feels like the world has lost a dimension. One of the children stops walking. An elder looks up. The birds stop calling. All of them, at once, as if on a signal. The temperature drops. The sun, by now a thin crescent, throws a light that none of them have ever seen. Cold, directionless, strange. A woman picks up her child without deciding to. The men reach for their spears without knowing why. And then the sun is gone. In its place, a black circle ringed by pale fire, surrounded by stars that have no business being visible. The horizon glows orange in every direction simultaneously, as if every sunset and every sunrise is happening at once, all the way around the world. The ground is dark. The air is cold. Somewhere in the trees, an owl calls. Crickets begin. Bats emerge from the rocks. Every animal that belongs to the night has decided that night has arrived. For 2 minutes and 30 seconds, the world is wrong. And then, a flash. A diamond of light at the edge of the black circle, so bright it forces every eye away. The sun is returning. The temperature climbs. The birds resume. The world corrects itself, as if nothing happened. As if the last 2 minutes were a mistake that the universe has quietly taken back. What did the mind do with that? The honest answer is, we don't actually know what the very first eclipse witness concluded in those first seconds. What we do know is what the body does, and what every culture that left any record concluded, and what every culture concluded independently across every inhabited continent, without any contact with each other, was the same thing. Something was eating the sun, not metaphorically, literally, because that is what the visual evidence showed. The sun was consumed from one edge, progressively, the way a predator consumes prey. A crescent, a sliver, gone. The inference was not superstition. It was the only hypothesis the available data supported. In China, a celestial dragon. In Norse lands, a wolf named Skuld. In Hindu mythology, the demon Rahu, decapitated by the gods, his severed head flying into the sky and swallowing the sun in revenge. In Vietnam, a giant frog. In Korea, fire dogs. In the Amazon, a jaguar. In Siberia, a vampire. 3 different continents. Cultures with no contact with each other, all arriving at the identical conclusion within the same logical framework. Predation, sit with that for a moment. Not because it reveals how limited ancient minds were, because it reveals how good they were. They looked at the evidence. They applied the only framework available. They reached a conclusion that was internally consistent, empirically grounded in what they could observe, and falsifiable, because every single time, the noise they made, the arrows they fired, the drums they beat, appeared to drive the predator away. The sun came back. The hypothesis was confirmed, over and over for tens of thousands of years. E.I.C. Krupp, director of the Griffith Observatory in Los Angeles, who has spent decades studying ancient eclipse mythology across cultures, put it this way: eclipses created not just fear, but a fundamental breakdown of the basic order of the world. The cycle of day and night is the most reliable thing a human being has ever known. When it fails, it is not just the sun that is in trouble. Everything is in trouble. Your ancestors were close observers of animal behavior. Their lives depended on it. And the animals were confirming what the body already knew. Birds roosting at midday. Owls calling from trees that should have been silent for hours. Bats spiraling out of caves into daylight that was no longer light. In a 2025 study published in Scientific Reports, researchers used a continental network of acoustic monitoring devices to track bird behavior during the total solar eclipse of April 2024. The finding was consistent with observations going back to the first known eclipse wildlife study in 1932. Birds across the entire path of totality went silent. They returned to their roosts. They behaved as if the day had ended. Your ancestors watched this happen. They understood animal behavior better than most modern humans understand anything, and every animal they had ever learned to trust was telling them the same thing. Something had gone catastrophically wrong. The response across cultures was immediate and logical. If something is eating the sun, You do what you have always done when a predator threatens something you cannot afford to lose. You make noise. You drive it away. Chinese communities banged drums and lit fires. Norse people shouted and struck metal. Communities across the Americas fired burning arrows into the sky. The Ojibwe aimed their fire arrows upward to relight the sun like a torch that had gone out. And every single time, the strategy worked. Within minutes, the predator retreated. The sun returned. The world was saved. The conclusion was reinforced every time it was tested. At some point, we cannot date it, but Anthony Aveni of Colgate University, one of the world's leading archaeoastronomers, believes it was happening through oral tradition long before any written record. Someone noticed that the predator returned on a cycle, roughly every 18 years and 11 days. A similar eclipse recurred. The pattern was there. If you watched long enough, if your group remembered carefully enough, if the knowledge survived from one generation to the next, and the moment someone could say it will happen again, and I know when, knowledge became power. The person who stood between the terrified population and the disappearing sun held something more valuable than any weapon. By the 8th century BCE, Babylonian astronomer priests had that pattern systematically recorded in clay. The Saros cycle, 6,585 days, repeating with enough regularity to predict, and they used it. If an eclipse was predicted to carry a death omen for the king, the priests enacted a ritual called the Shar Puhi, the substitute king, a prisoner, a criminal, a person of no social standing, crowned, robed, seated on the throne, given genuine royal privileges for days or months. And then, when the eclipse had passed and the omen had been transferred, ritually killed. More than 30 Assyrian letters document this practice. 5 confirmed performances between 679 and 666 BCE. The 2-minute shadow that your ancestors tried to drive away with noise had become, by the height of the Assyrian Empire, a mechanism for the systematic, premeditated murder of human beings. The fear scaled all the way up to human sacrifice, and it ran for 1,000 years. In 585 BCE, the Greek philosopher Thales of Miletus predicted a solar eclipse so accurately that when it arrived in the middle of a battle between the Medes and the Lydians, both armies laid down their weapons. They interpreted the darkness as a divine command to stop fighting. An eclipse ended a war. And in 1504, nearly 3,000 years after the Ugarit tablet was pressed in Syrian clay, Christopher Columbus, stranded in Jamaica and facing starvation, used a predicted lunar eclipse to terrify the Arawak people into resuming his food supply. He warned them 3 days in advance. He let them watch the moon darken. He emerged from his cabin at the moment of totality and announced he had persuaded his God to restore it. They believed him. The chain from the first prehistoric human who watched the sky go wrong, to the substitute king dying in Nineveh, to Columbus standing in a ship's cabin with an hourglass, is a single unbroken line. In 2021, Elise McGlashan and her colleagues at Monash University placed participants inside an fMRI scanner and exposed them to alternating blocks of light and darkness. The finding was clean and direct. Light suppressed activity in the amygdala. Darkness elevated it, measurably, significantly, every time. The pathway is anatomically direct. Light-sensitive cells in the retina connect straight to the amygdala without passing through the cortex. Your brain does not decide to be afraid of sudden darkness. It registers darkness as a threat before decision-making is possible. That man standing in the East African grassland 40,000 years ago, watching the light go wrong, reaching for his spear without knowing why. His amygdala is your amygdala. His retina-to-amygdala pathway is your retina-to-amygdala pathway. The circuit that fired in him fires in you. You are running ancient software in a modern environment. The software is doing exactly what it was always supposed to do. The environment changed. The software did not. The next time you feel an inexplicable unease when light fades at the wrong moment, when a cloud covers the sun and something tightens in your chest before you have a thought about it, that is not anxiety. That is a 40,000-year-old alarm doing exactly what it was calibrated to do. Only the explanation is new. There is a clay tablet in a museum archive that was pressed in the ancient city of Ugarit, in what is now Syria, on March 5, 1223 BCE. Archaeologists unearthed it in 1948. On its front face, in formal language, the eclipse recorded. The sun going down in the daytime, Mars visible in the sky beside the darkened disk. On its reverse, the human record. People praying in the streets, the king sending for his holy men, animal livers examined for meaning, a city that did not know what had happened to its sun, and was trying everything it knew to find out. That tablet sat in Syrian soil for 3,200 years. A specific person pressed those words into wet clay on the day the world went wrong. We do not know their name. We know what they saw. We know what it did to everyone around them. And we know that the question they were trying to answer is the same question that built every observatory ever constructed, compiled every astronomical table ever written, and launched every satellite now orbiting overhead. They did not get the answer right, but they recorded it in clay, so that someone 3,200 years later would know they had been there, that they had looked up, that they had been afraid, that they had tried. The fear is ancient. The sun is the same. Only the explanation is new. If you made it this far, you are exactly the kind of person this channel exists for. We make videos like this one every week, about ancient human behavior, about what your body still remembers, about the gap between the world you were built for and the one you actually live in. If that is something you want more of, hit subscribe. It costs you nothing, and it tells the algorithm that this kind of storytelling is worth keeping alive.